Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's live stream presentation here on the Tattooed Historian Facebook and YouTube channels. My name is John. I'm the Tattooed Historian, and tonight I'm joined by my good friend and up-and-coming TikTok legend, Dan Casella. I had to throw that in there, Dan. I'm sorry. He's doing some great stuff on there. I'm jealous. Dan is the president of the Lawrence Township Historical Society in Cedarville, New Jersey. And he is the man who led me to look at this project a little bit deeper. And we wanted to go into it because there are thousands and thousands of Union soldiers who are out there, whose U.S. Army soldiers, whose gravestones are just like this. And this is one that we want to highlight tonight. And that would be the one of Sergeant Joseph Burt, 7th New Jersey Volunteer Infantry. So Dan, thank you so much for being on here, man.
No problem.
Really appreciate it. And I thought it'd be great from the top just to go into your background real quick before we go into Sergeant Burt, because I always wanted to know what got you into history and why you wanted to become a historian.
Well, I was had an interest in history. I think that sort of started with my grandparents. My grandfather on my mom's side served in the 1st Marine Division. He was a veteran of Okinawa and Peleliu. He was then a New York City police officer. He was in the Mounted Division. So seeing photographs of that, and then my dad's dad was a medic in Patton's army, and he wasn't allowed to invade Italy because he was a full-blooded Italian.
Oh wow!
So he was kept in North Africa. My dad has a couple of pictures of him. I think one of them is he's standing with the 03 Springfield in front of the pyramids, but I'll have to check that. But it's a kind of a cool picture. But yeah, so then that, and then remember when the History Channel was cool and early 90s? Yeah, that really got me into history. I distinctly remember the show Tales of the Gun, just like that was it for me.
Oh yeah. And
then Civil War history came about when I was in 7th grade. Mr. Samus told me to go to a little reenactment, and that was it. I was hooked.
Yeah. I remember the days watching Tales of the Gun and Civil War Journal and all that stuff back in the day. And yeah, I'd hooked a lot of us of various ages at that time.
Absolutely.
You know, I want to learn more about it. What about coming up and getting into history in your area, in the local area? What was that like for you?
I grew up in a place called Pittsgrove, which there's a little place there called the Centerton Inn, which dates to 1706. It still stands. It still serves dinner. It's got a weird front to it. For some reason, modern paint doesn't stick to it. So anytime they put a new coat of paint on it, it just peels off. So it looks kind of ugly. But it reminds you of the old times. I grew up right behind the housing development my parents lived. There was a cemetery, and it's full of Civil War veterans. And that was sort of it. And then just coming around, being around the area and seeing all sorts of cool old stuff just interested me. And then once I got into Civil War reenacting in middle school, that was it. I needed to find everything old around me. And then once I moved down here, this town is sort of like a time capsule. Every building looks like it was built before the Civil War. And then sort of ends like right at the turn of the 20th century.
Wow.
But it was just so cool. And then seeing the Historical Society, I can see the Historical Society from my front porch. And then from my front porch, I can see the church steeple in which Joseph Burt is buried at. So it was just like a direct line of history for me, of local history. And then once I got into the organization, once I started to show up to their meetings, and just discovered the absolute wealth of this place, I couldn't help but get involved. And a few meetings went by, and then finally they were re-electing officers, and one old lady kind of gave me the hard elbow to run for president, and she nominated me, and then that was it. I was voted president. Yeah. Wow.
That's an interesting story, man, where it happens a lot with local historical societies, right? Where people volunteer, or they just show up to every meeting and they're like, okay, you're really into this. Let's work with this person because they're very personable and engaging and all that. Yeah. You definitely are. And I'm glad you do that.
But they brought me in and were like, hey, you have some ideas. You're it. And that was it.
Right. And your new blood. And that's what it's all about, getting in there and having a new perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. These not to be disrespectful, but The ladies who were running it had no idea what they had. They had things in a shed that were, falling apart from moisture and mold. Just documents and stuff being exposed to temperature changes all the time. Paper documents just out in the open falling apart. So, trying to get some sort of a preservation mind in there.
That's something we see too, where people just want to save all of it, but they don't know how to conserve all of it. And their heart's in the right place, but sometimes they don't have the training or the knowledge. And that happens a lot. Yeah. So what brought you upon this particular story about Sergeant Burt? You said you were within eyesight of where he is buried.
He's buried. Yeah. I could see his church steeple. I came across him finding another guy, researching another guy through a photograph that I found in a book. It was called Historic Days of Cumberland County. It was printed. There were two versions printed in 1897 and one in 1907. The exact same copies of one another. But there's a photograph that we have tonight. It's of the 5 Cedarville guys, and they're all displayed. I started with the guy in the middle, and then found him, found his house, found his headstone, and then sort of just exploring all the other guys, found Joseph Burt, the man seated with the beard and goatee, and found his headstone and was like, this is unacceptable. That his headstone is just sitting in the condition that it is. So, wanted to do something.
Yeah, and I believe we have a photo here there's the headstone right there that we're going to speak about this evening.
That was I went there this afternoon and took the photograph, and I bumped into the groundskeeper who happened to be there, and he said it's been like this since the 1980s.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's a little overdue.
So who was Sergeant Burt? What's Sergeant Burt's story, Dan?
So I wasn't able to find like a census record or any sort of like documents to show that what he did for a living. I was able to find his house. His home is less than a half mile from me. It's on a little spot here in town. It doesn't stand anymore. There's a home next to it, and I've been in contact with the guy who owns the house next to where Joseph Burt used to live, and he says he's going to go metal detecting and check it out and see what he can find, if a nail of the house or whatever, but just some sort of a footprint of where he lived. All right. So Joseph Burt, first record I have of him, he marries a woman named Martha Shepard. There's a few large families in Cedarville: Shepard, Ogden, Bateman, and there's another one that skipped my name, but Shepard's one of the big names in town. So he marries Martha Shepard in around 1855. She gives birth to their only son, William, and passes away during childbirth. And in 1856, he marries Maria Bateman, who passes in August of 1860. And then from there, he sort of takes his child, and I believe he lives with family, which in a letter I'll read to you later, you can sort of see where not his predicament, but that he doesn't have a wife and he was living with family. His headstone was put up by his son after his death in April of 1895. So that's where it stands today. It engraves the woman that raised him for a few years, and Joseph Burt, and then of course William Burt himself. Joseph Burt enlists. He's a boy of 61. He enlists September 17th of 1861, which I think is a little ironic of the date. Yeah. So he enlists here in town, and then they go to Camp Olden, which is in Trenton, New Jersey, named after former Governor Olden. There used to be a reenactment there years and years ago called Camp. It was a cool little event. So then from New Jersey, they go to Camp Casey, which is in Meridian Hill, Virginia, which now in the city of D.C., there is a Meridian Hill Park, and it is a direct shot from the White House front door. I think it's about a mile or so, and you probably could have seen at the time from this camp the White House and vice versa. Now through the city and whatnot, you can't. But he's there. And in October of 1861, he writes a letter. He writes a letter to his Aunt Susan about camp life and such, which I will read to you right now.
All right.
Now, mind you, this was hard to read. It was all one run-on sentence. There's no punctuation. There's extra letters at the end of words and S's and the S set and weird stuff. It's a totally classic 19th century letter. One of my favorite things about this letter is you look really hard at 22nd. It's marked 22nd.
Oh, yes. Yes. I see a lot of that. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Right here.
So he writes, Dear Aunt Susan, as I have not wrote to you before since I have left home and have enjoyed camp life for 1 month today, I thought I would take this opportunity of doing so. It has been a blank day with us here. It has been raining nearly all day and is very wet and muddy. I often think of you and all the Cedarville friends. We are separated a great distance from each other and under very peculiar circumstances, but we still can wish each other well and no doubt do as all is well and satisfied, and all have some very nice times, although we have a plenty to do. That was a mouthful, pardon me. We drill about 7 hours a day and get up at 5 in the morning and cease at 9 in the evening. These use the hours for all only to keep except when on guard. And then we are on for 24 hours at a time, 2 hours on duty and 4 off. But as it happened, I was appointed to office. I get clear off a good deal of guard duty, but have to take charge of guard whenever my turn comes and have other duties to attend to. He's talking about being promoted to corporal, which he did October 5th of 1861. According to New Jersey state records. Besides this was altogether unexpected and unasked of me, but I came with the exception of doing my duty as far as possible. We do not enjoy a nice Sabbath as we do at home, for there is very little difference between the days here, although we have started a prayer meeting in our tent and have very good meetings. We hold them 4 times a week, and they are very well attended, but we can hear them on each side of us. Some swearing and some playing cards and all other kinds of wickedness that was ever thought of. Classic 19th century fluff. When we turn out on drill, it does not look much like Cedarville. Is nearby 1,000 all standing in 2 ranks together. Yesterday we had a review, which was a very pretty sight, all dressed in uniform. Here was 8 regiments together, about 8,000 or 9,000 soldiers together, and it made a long string. It was inspected by the chief officers and their staffs. Old Uncle Abe and his lady was there with the rest. We have pretty good grub to live on, but not as such as if we got at home. I should like to see my children and friends and get some pie and cake, but I do not wish to stay there. Again, talking about his odd family life. And I know he just mentioned children. I have never been able to find a second child in records. Let me continue. We can get these knickknacks here, but have to pay 4 pieces for them. We buy butter sometimes, but have to give 32 cents a pound, and it is shortening tub butter, but tastes very well. Elmer, one of the guys in the photograph, Elmer and all has got here with us and is in the same tent. He said that Sally was over there to your house before he left and told you where I was. I must close now, for I am getting tired of wishing I was gone before today. Give my respect to all inquiring friends and receive a share for yourself. Write soon, direct to Washington, D.C., Camp Casey, Meridian Hill, Company H, 7th New Jersey Volunteers, Joseph Burt. P.S. Lore, which I believe is Lorenzo, which is one of the guys in the photograph. Lore says he is going to write as soon. Yes, he is going to write to you soon here. A general writing school here is here, for we are all at it. Just a neat little typical 19th century letter. And when I found that, it was actually in the wrong section. It was in the spot labeled in our little historical society labeled World War I. I walked up to the letter. I saw it in a little glass frame, and I saw all the handwriting on it. And I immediately just grabbed it and started looking at it. And as soon as I saw April 1861 or October 22nd, 1861, the butterflies in my stomach started. So I just started reading it. And then that's really what sort of started the Joseph Burt dive. And then that was that. So then from there, they go. They're in Meridian Hill. They take a little expedition to Lower Maryland, where they do picket duty, drilling, and embracing the suck. And then in December of 1861, they go to a place called Budd's Ferry, Maryland, which there's a highway marker by the Maryland Highway Department. And it says this: movement of Confederate troops across the Potomac River in Virginia were observed from a balloon above this point. And there they were at a place called Camp Revere, which I believe was named after the colonel of the 7th New Jersey. And right here, I'd like to bring up primary source number 1. I have in this historical society, there's scrapbooks. These scrapbooks are ledger books from the 1820s that have all sorts of cool newspaper clippings in them.
Wow.
And there's like 4 or 5 pages just on the Battle of Williamsburg. This area was really affected by the Battle of Williamsburg. Bridgeton, Hopewell, Cedarville all lost a lot of guys. They all had companies in several different regiments of the 2nd New Jersey Brigade, which takes a really big bloody nose at Williamsburg. So where was I going with that? So here's this letter from it's signed by a bunch of the guys that are in that photograph. They're at a place called Camp Revere in Lower Potomac, Maryland. Here we go. Editors, it is through you that the undersigned members of Company H, 7th New Jersey, 7th Regiment, New Jersey Volunteers would desire to express our thanks to our Cedarville and Sayers Neck friends for the favor and respect they have shown us in sharing with us the blessing which God has bestowed upon them by sending a box packed full, and it was not a small size, but one that took strength of a number of us boys to convey to our quarters. The first thing that was asked was, "Where is the hatchet?" But there was not much time wasted in thinking where we could procure one. One says, "Go to the lieutenant's tent and borrow his." We wish our friends to know that this was not repeated, for legs appeared too willing to do their duty immediately. The hatchet was procured, and we at once made our way into the box. There we found a list of names of the kind donors, and after reading the few orders, which we could not help seeing upon removing the lid, we forthwith proceeded to execute them without further delay. We found within the box things that Uncle Sam does not provide for his men, such as sausage, chickens, cakes, bread and butter, etc. And last of all, we came to a turkey nicely cooked and ready for eating. This was agreed to give to our much esteemed Captain J.H. Willits, who is with us and desires to send his esteem and regard to those of our friends who have been so kind in remembering us. Although we are separated from each other under very peculiar circumstances, we assure our friends that we often think of them and wish them well, hoping God will bless them and keep them, and that we may, after this dark cloud which is now hanging over our beloved country is dispelled, and not until it is, be so happy as to join glad hands with them, and it is in our dear native state of New Jersey. And we, with our friends, hope and pray that this may come soon to pass. Signed, Albert Bateman, Joseph Burt, Benjamin F. Ogden, Elmer B. Ogden, Elmer Demont, Joseph Diver, and Lorenzo Painter.
Wow.
And that was out of the Bridgeton Chronicle, which was a newspaper from the town of Bridgeton, which is just up the road a ways.
Wow. That's awesome when you find what they're getting through the lines. It's amazing.
Oh yeah. Oh, wait till the next one. The next one's if you thought that was good, wait till the next one. All right, so they're at Camp Revere. April 5th, they head down a steamship to the peninsula. April 8th, they arrive near Yorktown and set in for that siege. Again, they go more on picket duty, embracing the suck. And now this time they're getting shot at by rebels. May 4th, as everyone knows, the rebels just disappear from Yorktown. And then the Union Army follows up. And the next day, May 5th, they fight at Williamsburg. And my buddy Drew Gruber over at Civil War Trails sent me this book, Defend This Old Town by Carol Kettenberg Dubs. And let me tell you, man, this book is awesome. Let me get it right on the screen. Defend This Old Town. Such a good book. Drew, thank you, buddy. So he goes to they fight at Williamsburg. They take a really the whole New Jersey Brigade, and actually the whole Union Army, takes a pretty good beating there. And from camp correspondence, I have my third primary source here I'd like to read. This is from Benjamin Ogden. You know what? Before I do that, can you pull up the picture of everybody? I want to give a little history of everybody here.
Sure. There we go. Let's see here. There we go. This one here, Dan?
Yep, that's it. So
All
you
right.
see the 5 guys, 3 seated, 2 standing. The guy with the beard is the one writing this correspondence. His name is Benjamin Ogden. He's buried right here in the same cemetery with Joseph Burt and several others. His headstone reads Captain Benjamin Ogden, which he never raises above the rank of private in the Army. So the captain part must have just been, I don't know, maybe from the GAR, or he won a bet or something. But he also has a really cool 3rd Corps badge right on his headstone too. The man to his left is Joseph Diver. He will raise to the rank of corporal. And now seated, I'll start with the guy in the middle because he's the one who is left here at Williamsburg. His name is Elmer Ogden. His home still stands in Fairton, New Jersey. What happens to him is described in this letter, but he is killed at Williamsburg and he is reburied here in Cedarville. The man to his right, or to the right of the screen, not the guy with the beard, the other guy. Yep. His name is Lorenzo Dow Painter. Lorenzo Dow, if anyone knows who that is, wrote an autobiography, or there was a book about him. He was a Presbyterian preacher. And at one point, his book was the 2nd most popular book in the country next to the Bible. And this guy, Lorenzo Dow Painter, is named after him because the Reverend Lorenzo Dow came to the local Fairton Presbyterian Church that dates back to the Revolution. He gave a sermon there, and they said it was the biggest gathering of carriages and people at that church ever, up until the enlistment of the 24th New Jersey in 1862. Anyway, and then of course, then there's Joseph Burt, the man we're talking about, the man of the hour. And I'll finish his story at the end of the night here. Okay, so back to Benjamin Ogden's camp correspondence. He says, this is the camp of the 7th New Jersey Volunteers near Cumberland, Virginia, May 18th, 1862. Dear brother, now I believe he's writing this to his brother Charles Ogden, who was serving in the 17th Illinois, and at this point was about to, at this exact moment was fighting at the Battle of Shiloh. I suppose, dear brother, I suppose you wish to hear something from me in reference to our battle. I shall have to be brief, for this is a half sheet, is all the paper I have. We lost our knapsacks and everything except what we had on our backs, and money is of no use here yet, for there is nothing to buy. Only once in a while, some sutlers get barrels of crackers, which he sells at 25 cents a pound, and tobacco at $1 a plug. But I must speak of our contest, although it makes me feel sad every time I mention it, for it renews the recollection that that one of our numbers still lies beneath the battleground. Oh, how we miss him. When the battle commenced, 6 of us Cedarville boys stood side by side in the front rank. At night, 1 lay dead on the field and 2 in the hospital wounded. 3 came out without a scratch, although I had 3 bullet holes through my overcoat cape. I did not know that poor Elmer had fallen, or Lorenzo Painter and Albert Bateman were wounded until night. One don't notice much that takes place around him in such a time as that. After the battle was over, I began to inquire where our boys were, for I had not seen any of them except Joseph Burt. He told me that Elmer Ogden had been killed and he saw him fall, and that Albert Bateman was wounded before he fired a gun, and Lorenzo Painter was also slightly wounded. This was sad news to hear. Sleep was impossible, for we were wet to the skin. We had nothing to eat but a few hard crackers. How I longed for a cup of hot coffee, but owing to this badness of the roads and teams could not get up to us, so I ate what little I had, drank some hot water, and felt very thankful that it was well with me as it was. We built a large fire and sat by it till morning, when General Hooker, God bless him, sent men on horseback to fetch us something to eat as soon as possible. About 10 o'clock, they came with bags of crackers and salt beef slung across the horses' backs, and also some coffee. You can't begin to know the joy of us of half-starved soldiers, for I don't suppose you ever had the trial, and God grant you may never. I was also glad to get a piece of raw salt beef that I sat down and cried for joy. Perhaps you may think this was foolish, but even our major shed tears to see the men tear into raw beef with a good relish. After eating all we wanted, I went on the field where we had spent the previous day. There I saw sad sights I shall never forget. Many of the wounded were still laying on the ground until, Many lay on the field, uttering cries that would startle the stoutest heart. The captain said he would bury Elmer where he fell. Sergeant Stiles and myself dug a grave and buried him. It was hard to do. The rebels had taken everything out of his pockets and even the rings off of his fingers. The only things they left was a pair of gloves, which I sent to his mother. General Hooker says we were whipped 3 times, but did not know it. He says we are not soldiers, but bulldogs. We do not stay in one place long, but keep closing up towards Richmond. The report is the rebels have made a stand on towards Richmond, and if it is my duty to be in another contest, I am ready, but I have no wish to see any more battles. I could tell you much more if I had paper. We expect to move tomorrow morning. I remain your brother, Benjamin Ogden. It's a lot to write on half a sheet of paper.
It's a lot.
That's it for the long stuff, I promise. But yeah, that just gives a little insight to the misery of being a soldier. And I think I thought that was a really cool piece.
Yeah, that's amazing when they're putting so much on paper about their experiences like that, and they're putting the hard truth of what they're going through. They're not sugarcoating anything, and it's coming out there for the masses to read. Whoever can read it, we have to remember that they have an audience they want to present that to through that letter. But now through your work and the work of so many others, we can all appreciate what these guys went through, and having to bury their friend and brothers in arms and such. It's just amazing what these guys had to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
So these guys, the 7th is in it for the long haul. They're let me get up to here. Here we go. So they're of course they're involved after Williamsburg. They follow up the peninsula, where they see action at Fair Oaks, May 31st and June 1st, and I'm just going to go right down the line.
Sure.
Duty near Seven Pines until June 25th. Action near Oak Grove or Seven Pines, which I always find it funny that the North and South always have different names for the same action.
Right.
And I've even found accounts of guys having completely made up names for a battle they didn't even know about. Like somebody told me one time that their ancestor wrote, I'm not saying it was Culp's Hill, but it was something like Culp's Hill. And they were like, oh, it was just a big rocky mountain. That's what we fought. Like, and it was whatever battle, but they always gave it these weird names.
Right.
So anyway, Savage Station, June 29th, Glendale, June 30th, Battle of Malvern Hill, July 1st. And then they moved to Harrison's Landing on August 15th, where their colonel at the time, Ezra Carman, is promoted to the colonel of the 13th New Jersey, which they'll fight on Culp's Hill and be part of the 12th Corps and burn down Atlanta. Movements to Centerville, Virginia, and then they're part of the Second Manassas Campaign, August 22nd to September 2. Battle of Kettle Run, or also known as, which was fought on what will be the Bristow Station battlefield in 1863.
Okay.
And I have another sort of a project, a thing I'm working on for another guy in the 5th New Jersey. His name is Captain Edward Acton. He's captain of Company K, the 5th New Jersey, and in his letters he writes that after the Battle of Kettle Run, he picks up a infield rifle and carries it with him for the rest of the campaign.
Wow.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So then at the Battle of Groveton, August 29th, and then the second Battle of Bull Run, August 30th. And then, of course, their last action for a while is their present, apparently, at the Battle of Chantilly, where we all know my beloved General Kearney falls at the hands of those dastardly rebels. After Chantilly, the Army takes its tail and goes into the defenses of Washington, where Burt and the rest of the 7th New Jersey they'll participate to some extent in the Maryland campaign, but they won't see action at South Mountain or Antietam or anything like that. they're gonna sit back and hang tight. I have a book by a guy who's in the 5th New Jersey, Alfred Bellard, Gone for a Soldier.
Right.
He has a drawing of what they look like right after Second Manassas, and you would think like, oh, 62 Yankee, they're all sharp and well dressed and well supplied. No, this dude looks like trash. So I would only imagine the rest of the 2nd New Jersey Brigade looked very similar going into the defenses of Washington after campaigning all spring and summer long.
That period of August, September, early October 62, both they think only the Confederate Army looked ragtag. The Federal Army is not much better.
No,
they're rough.
That's like a myth about Antietam. Like, oh, the Federal Army, is all reorganized and sent in. No, they're terrible. They're just as bad as the Confederate Army.
Mm-hmm.
So then they missed the Maryland campaign, and then both armies dilly-dally until Fredericksburg, which the 7th again is present at Fredericksburg. They don't really go into action, and then they, like I said, the December 12th to the 15th, they miss all of that, and then they're in the Mud March. January 20th to the 24th, and then operations around the Rappahannock Bridge and Grove Church, February 5th to the 7th. And that's where things sort of take a hard right turn for Joseph Burt. At this point in his life, he is 32 years old. He is definitely an older man in the ranks. The life expectancy of someone in 1862 was like 55, 60.
Yeah, if you're lucky. Yeah, 60 if you're lucky.
So he's well into his life, and unfortunately, he dies from the official state record reads congestion of the heart, but my last primary source of the night is Burt's actual. You've got it up on your thing.
Yes,
Burt's actual obituary.
Yes, here we go.
So it says, Joseph Burt, a member of Company H, 7th Regiment, New Jersey Volunteers, died suddenly in camp at Aquita Creek and was buried in Cedarville on Sunday, the 15th. He enlisted in the early part of the war and passed through several battles unhurt. He died at night of heart disease, it is supposed. That's just one of those things that I don't think they had any idea that it was going to come and it was going to get anybody that ever suffered that sort of a thing. And like 2 to 1 died of disease or some sort of, 2 out of 2 to 1 died of disease. Battle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For every 1 battle, 2 to disease. Yep.
Terrible. But Joseph Burt is then probably mailed home in a wooden box via express, which is an incredibly, mailing bodies express was a very common practice back then.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this guy that I was talking about, Edward Alexander Acton, when he dies at Second Manassas, his body is again sent home via express. So he's buried at the First Presbyterian Church, which the church that stands now was built in the 1880s. They did have one in the 1860s, but I believe it was a wooden church. And then, like I said earlier, the headstone was put up by his son or sometime after his son in 1895. And then, so once I got this all started, the fundraiser for this, I was almost immediately contacted by a local headstone company who said that they would love to help out. They do headstones for another historic church right in Bridgeton, which the Presbyterian church there predates 1740. So they wanted to help me with that. We're going to get an exact replica of the stone made. They're going to take the original, repair it, try to put it back together if they can, or try to put it back together to the best that they can. We're going to, once that's done, we're going to take it into our historical society, and we're going to display it with this original letter, the photograph. I'm going to get the photograph blown up into a nice high resolution, detail. And I have a friend who's a cap maker, a reenactor friend of mine, and he's going to make me a cap, and we're going to have it all on display, for everyone to see and enjoy.
Nice. What about how did you raise the funds, Dan, for this project?
So I put it up on a GoFundMe, and within 20 days, I raised $1,790.
Wow. That's amazing. That's awesome. Is it so the GoFundMe is no longer operational then because you've reached your goal?
I believe you can still donate to it. I got an email saying it was closed. So
Okay. Yeah.
maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you've reached the goal then.
Yeah, I blew the goal out of the water.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna have another project probably sometime in the other end of the year. So if anybody wants to hang out and wait to do that, they can jump on that. But yeah, I am the president of this small little historical society, and I'm just doing what I got to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to bring in some comments. We got. You gave a shout out to Drew. Drew's in the comments. Not soldiers, but bulldogs would be a great title for a book.
Exactly.
That would be a great title for a book. I really like that. Jason Wickersty, I'm telling you, Wawa didn't get its Sutler contract until December 62.
Yeah, there you go. Didn't come out, and they weren't.
Yeah.
If the whole army had it, the war would have been over by the winter.
Yeah, the rewards card came out in January of 63. I know I have one. Yeah, and Adam giving it up for Carney. Yeah, this is fantastic, Dan, and I'm really happy that you're able to do this. And I do want to point out how important this project is, obviously, or we wouldn't be discussing it. The other thing is, for everyone watching, if you go to your local area, this is part of local history here, and you're gonna find a lot of stones that look exactly like this, and they are from the 19th century, and they are either in a bad condition, such as this one, or they need some help. There are a lot of ways that you can give back to your local history, and Dan is doing that through this effort, and everyone who's donated to the GoFundMe account is doing that. You only got to throw $1 in a GoFundMe to help out to save some history. Dan's proven that, and everyone who's donated has proven that. This is why local history is so important. Andrew, I think there is the plan to keep or repair the original headstone after the replacement. Correct, Dan? You want to touch on that one more time?
Sure.
Please.
We're gonna, once the headstone company that is making a copy of the original, they're going to clean it, try to repair it, put it back together as best they can, and then we will display it in our historical society.
Dan, what is is there a website for the historical society?
There isn't. We have I have a little Facebook page. It's not even a page. I think it's just like a little page. Just Google or not Google, Facebook search Lawrence Township Historical Society, and it will come right up. Awesome. Now there's Lawrence Township in North Jersey, and there's a town of Lawrence in I think in Burlington County, but Lawrence Township Historical Society will get you right to our page.
Awesome. And there are people, Dan, after we are offline, who would like to connect with you. They're in the comments right now. We can go back through those later on, and we'll be able to network, which is the other great thing about being able to do things like this. We can all network and help and share each other's stories with everyone on Facebook and YouTube. Dan, any last parting words before we log off?
No.
Jersey.
No, if Kearney had been given his division of Jerseymen like he had wanted to in 1861, and I quote this, he said, "Put a peach orchard or a chicken coop on one side of Richmond and give me a division of Jerseymen, and we will take that city. We'll take that city, be damned," or something. It's a great quote. I'll have to find it again, but yeah, all glory to Kearney is what I'll sign off with.
There you go, everyone. Dan, I appreciate your time, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you for sharing this story with everyone. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to everyone in the comments. If we didn't reach any of you, or if you want to have further connections with Dan, we'll go back through the comments after we're all done here or within the next few hours, and we'll be able to reach out to you. But thank you, everyone who has been watching on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much. And we'll keep you updated on this project. I'm sure Dan will be updating us as we go forward.
Yeah. So once we get a date on when the headstone will be done, I'll have a ceremony and all that stuff. And we're looking for a keynote speaker. So John, keep your messages open. Hey,
you know where to find me if you need anything, whether it's covering it or what it is. I'll help out wherever I can.
All right, cool.
Thank you again, my friend. Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful evening. We hope you have a safe and happy evening. Take care of yourselves. We will talk to you very soon.